Our first speaker is the founder of Joost, and while he is no longer the CEO, he remains really important to our company. So give it up for Joost de Valk.
So, good morning. I've got some very, very exciting things to share this morning. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I wanted to explain in the very beginning, like, what is it that we really do? We say SEO for everyone. We say that a lot. But when we say that, what do we even mean? What we mean is that we want you to be able to compete with everyone. We want you to be able to make a website and make it found by search engines and on social networks. We don't care whether you're Disney or Microsoft or a local shoe store, even though the local shoe store cannot afford to pay our lunches. So we don't even really care whether you can afford Yoast SEO Premium. Every feature that we think is really important for you to be able to rank your website is in the free version of Yoast SEO. Of course, Yoast SEO Premium has its benefits, and it will have more benefits over time. But the benefits will always be things that save you time and that make things easier for you to do. If we really think something is truly important for you to rank your website, it'll be in Yoast SEO Free. That is what SEO for everyone means to us. And apparently it's working, because as of this moment, we have 9 million websites using Yoast SEO worldwide, which is an absolutely mind-boggling number. It also makes me afraid every time we hit the update button, because if we break something, we break a lot of sites. But because that number is so large, I think I'm allowed a slight bit of arrogance on that part. So let's go in and redefine SEO. It's only a bit of work, right? In the last few years, voice search has started popping up. And as I said a year and a half ago, voice search has already changed all of search. Not because everyone is now using voice search, but because all the search engines are getting ready for a world where voice search is the default. So everything has been changing in that regard, and that has changed a lot about how we think about SEO. Now, traditionally, we split up SEO in two things, in technical SEO and content SEO. And while these two things are very different steps of the SEO process, it doesn't really fit well with what it really is that SEO is. So we're going to try and talk about it a bit differently, while still admitting that there is a technical side to SEO and a content side to SEO. I think we should split it up like this. First of all, discovery. Where is it? In traditional SEO, this would be called crawling. We'll talk about that in a bit. Then there's indexing. What is it? Search engines grab the page, and later on they start indexing it, and they start analyzing what's on that page. How do these pages relate to each other? What are these different versions doing? And then there's ranking. How good is it? How important is that page? How many links does that page have? So I'm going to go through all these three phases and try to explain what we're doing right now to help you in all of these phases. And the first one is also, I think, the most exciting thing that I can share with you this morning. You see, discovery of content has historically been done through different means. First, there were search engines that had direct URL submission. You had to submit your site to be crawled by a search engine. Then there came search engines that followed links and had PageRank and used those links to discover new pages. Later on, we added XML sitemaps to that process to show search engines like these are all the pages on our site. And in the last few months, something else has been added to that, and that's APIs. And that's where I can share this really exciting announcement that we're working with both Bing and Google to build something new. We're building an option to allow you to log in from your plugin on your site to our customer portal, MyYoast. And if you make that connection later on, this will be live, I hope, by the end of March. We'll send your new published posts, your updated posts, and your deleted posts straight into Google and Bing. So if you hit publish, within 1 minute, both search engines will crawl that page because we will send them the ping about that new page being there. It's no longer a process of us updating an XML sitemap and then the search engine grabbing the XML sitemap, checking the last modified dates, searching through that. It's a straight, we have the URL, we ping it to the search engine. This means that your changes to sites will be indexed within seconds. So within a minute of you posting, you'll be able to search on your content, something that really only the largest publishers in the world have been able to do so far. We think this is pretty mind-blowing because this basically means that of those three problems, discovery is now a solved problem. You can connect your site to MyYoast, you can build a new site, and every new page that you publish will be in the index, done. Of course, there's spam mechanisms on there and etc., so we can't guarantee any rankings or anything because we don't have anything to do with that. But we can tell you that we'll send the data to them and that they'll crawl that page. Now, the next step is also very, very interesting because there's a lot happening in that regard. Indexing is really changing a bit. Why is indexing changing? Well, it used to be about content and metadata. We had pages with titles, meta description. Those of you who have been in this industry long enough might even remember meta keywords and all these other very weird things that we stuffed. Then over time, we added things like canonicalization, trying to show that while we have 10 different versions of a URL, only this simple version should be in Google or Bing. Then we added rendering onto that, where search engines started to actually render out those pages to see what's on those pages when users see them. A change that is very, very important because it really makes all the difference in how people interact with that page. It's also one of the main reasons for breakage on a lot of sites still, because a rendered page looks different in the search engine than it does for normal users. Then we have things like hreflang and a lot of other concerns. We'll have Aleda speak later on, but she's speaking about something else in hreflang. If you're interested in hreflang, we have a great course on that, but it's basically the worst specification ever to come out of search engines. All of this is very important, but we're adding new stuff to that. For a basic WordPress site, we've solved most of that. We've solved the canonicalization. If you're not doing multilingual, then we've basically solved it all. If you are doing multilingual, I'm basically going to be honest and say there's stuff to do, and other CMSs might at this point in time do it better. I'm going to go into ranking first, and then we'll get back to the combination of these things, because ranking basically consists of a couple of things. It's quality of your content. It's your authority, how many external links you have. It's internal links and site structure, probably one of still the most actionable parts of SEO. And it's quality, 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 quality. I can't say that enough. So quality, now, quality of content is becoming more and more important because all the other things are solved. Up until now, a lot of SEO was making sure that your stuff was found by the search engines in the first place. But because we're making all that step so very easy, your quality matters more than ever before, and your site structure and your external links start to matter more, weirdly enough. So we've been working on a project called the Recalibration Project. If you follow us online, you might have seen our videos about that or read one of our posts, where we're recalibrating our SEO analysis within the plugin. And the question we ask is, what is quality? Can we define that better? Can we do actual scientific research, something that in the SEO community is always hard, because there's so many things that you have to take into account. We're currently beta testing that, and there's already more than 100,000 people running the beta test. And so far, the results are very good and very positive. So we'll probably flick it on in a while from now. If you want to try the beta, you have to be quick, because as of the next release, we're probably disabling the beta for a bit. So if you want to be in, enable it and go in. I dare say that with the things that we're announcing today and tomorrow about what we're going to do in 2019, we will really take away the last hurdles for getting your site into Google, Bing, and all those indexes. Your content will be discovered. Your content will be ranked, especially if you're on WordPress. And I'll give a shout out to the guys here up front from MaxSurf who built our Typo 3 Yoast SEO extension, because that is almost nearly as good. So your content will be discovered, and your content will be indexed. But will you get it ranked? And the question there is, how do you get stuff ranked in 2019? Now, I'm not going to do a talk on how you should write the best content, because other people here can talk about that way better. But I will tell you this. Rich snippets are everywhere. The 10 blue links that we all knew in years past have really, really gone. If you search for recipes, your results always look like this. There really is no recipe result anymore where you don't get the rich snippets. And it's important to understand how this works. There's this wonderful thing called schema.org that we talk about a lot, but it's probably hard to understand if you're not straight into it. But this is a definition of structured data. This is how can we define the content on that page in a way that the search engine can grab it. When you see this, you know what it is, because our brains turn out to be very good at recognizing stuff. You recognize what this is fairly easily just because of contextual clues. Turns out search engines are pretty darn stupid. So they need help. Now this recipe ranks #1 for lasagna recipe. And if you look at what a search engine sees when it sees this page, you throw it into Google's structured data testing tool. And I hope I'll get the video to play now. And you see that the recipe has been marked up with schema.org to a ridiculous extent. The schema.org markup on this page is incredible. It's also technically actually pretty hard to do all of that. No normal user will ever be able to code schema like that and make it as simple or accessible as that. The reason it's doing this is because all these search engines are preparing for voice search. They want to be able to read out that recipe to you. But as we've seen in the recipe industry, as schema gets more use, it becomes more of a requirement for ranking. It is impossible right now to rank recipes without having schema. That's simply because there's so much sites already that have implemented recipe schema. So in 2019, we will see more types of search results require schema. And maybe you're thinking, why is that? Well, let me tell you a story. A year and a half ago, we stood here on stage, Omar and I, on this same stage, demoing Gutenberg, the new block editor for WordPress. It looked like that a year and a half ago, which when I looked at the pictures, it baffled me because it doesn't really look all that different now, even though we've taken so much time to polish it. A year and a half ago, we were not really content with where Gutenberg was at that time. But we got to work, and we started helping build Gutenberg, and we started building Yoast SEO for it. Right now, it's probably the best version of Yoast SEO we've ever built is when you use the block editor. It's faster, it's more stable, and it looks a hell of a lot cooler. So we have our sidebar, which turns out to be actually very useful, as you can look at your readability stuff while you're typing. I find that very fascinating. And our highlights in sentences have become way better and way more stable because we actually got to build an API into Gutenberg that allows us to do this instead of hacking it onto the existing WordPress editor. You'll also see here that we recognize combinations of words and we recognize plurals. We didn't used to do this, but we do as of this year, and I'm very proud of how that looks. Now, by building all of that, we made Gutenberg plugin ready, but now it's time to go one step further. You see, Gutenberg really opens up a Play Store. Gutenberg has this concept called blocks, and blocks have huge potential. They have the dream of combining two things, that is, easy content management and seamless schema.org markup without you having to think about doing that markup. Now, our thinking about this, of course, progresses as we work with it. So we have a how-to block in Yoast SEO already, but we're currently working on a second iteration of that looks a bit more like this. What's different here is that all these things that you see, the thing on top, you'll of course not see on the front end, but we tell you which parts of a block are required, and then you can shovel everything around. So you can move your time needed to the bottom if you want to. You can do stuff with that. You can change the label on time needed. You can do everything you want. I built this literally in under 1 minute yesterday, and this parses. If you check the output of this, it parses immediately as valid schema. So you can say, I want to make a how-to. You open up a how-to block in Gutenberg, you start typing, and all of this just works. You don't have to think about schema. Because thinking about schema is very scary. The way I like to think of it, and those of you who've seen the videos of our office might know that I'm a bit of a Lego nut. We are building the Lego blocks that help us build the bigger blocks so that we can very easily combine them into different types of schema. We've looked at this before. This is the recipe again. You can see that it contains a lot of different properties. If you start really looking at it, though, there's only a couple of different types of data in there. The input fields for those are the same, basically. They have a different name in every schema, but that's not something a user should be worried about. That's something that we should worry about. So we've got these and maybe a few more. And by making these inner blocks, as they're called in the block editor, and combining them in useful ways, we can make basically every schema block that you want. This is the wall at Google Zurich, and I'm afraid to say I've cut it wrongly because, funnily enough, if you up the top there's a Yandex logo that somebody legoed onto the Google wall, which I found hilarious. Yandex, if you don't know it, is the big Russian search engine. But with these blocks, we can build a lot more than just how-to blocks. So we're planning to build, in 2019, job postings, recipes, events, organization and local business, person or offer or profile, reviews, etc., etc. All of those, as we think they are requirements for ranking, will have a version in Yoast SEO free. So by the end of this year, if we get our way, this will look different. Why will it look different? Well, because if we flood the web with sites that do schema easily, then search engines will start to prefer schema for those specific types of rankings. And because of our sheer size now, we can flood the web. This goes for jobs, I think, very quickly, because that has already begun in many ways. Google has been pushing job postings for a while. So for millions of sites, schema will really become effortless. I honestly also think that this is why other CMSs will have to adopt a similar method. It's really not feasible to expect users to understand schema. We should really abstract away from that and just make it easy for people to put out schema. So I want to welcome you to what we call a world of blocks. So let me recap. This year, and I hope a lot of this will actually be the first half of this year, we're going to change discovery by doing live indexing with Bing and Google straight from your site. We're going to change ranking and indexing by adding schema to many, many more sites. And the funny thing is that what will be important now in ranking is that the quality of your content is no longer just the quality of your writing, but it's also, have you filled out your schema correctly? So you can expect us to help you in doing that as well. Have you added all these things? A recipe without calories ranks harder than a recipe with calories. A recipe that doesn't specify its ingredients well enough has a hard time ranking. These things start to matter. It starts to matter that you really have all of these things correct in your content. So the quality of your content becomes a much more holistic thing. But if I combine all of this, I can honestly, when I was looking at this, I was like, well, how am I going to end this? And I can only say that for me, 2019 will be a very cool year in SEO. But with a slight side note. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joost, for a wonderful talk. So we have some time. Yes, we have some time for questions. Where's that thing?
Yeah, I want to throw.
Yeah.
Can I throw at least once?
So does anyone have a question? And we'll throw gently. Promise. Wow, great catch.
Good morning, good morning. Joost, will there be a schema stop line? Traffic light?
Well, we'll get feedback on it. Honestly, the UX of these things is some of the hardest UX work we've ever done. So we're looking at how to give that feedback in a way that it's there where you need it. And I see a couple of things we'll probably do there. We'll probably highlight it as you're editing, and probably also if you're missing required things, at some point we'll start highlighting it to you when you want to publish. In WordPress, in the block editor, you now have an extra step when you publish, where we can add stuff. So we can tell you like, hey, you should be adding this, or you should be adding that, or you haven't set a meta description yet. We could add like, hey, you've added this schema, but you're missing that required block. That sort of feedback is, yeah. In all honesty, UX is the hardest problem in all of this. Even though the technical problems are hard, the UX problems are infinitely harder.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Joost, you have to throw all the way back.
All the way there?
Yes.
Let me see if I can reach. Otherwise, throw it on, please.
Yes. Oh.
Almost.
Nice.
Thank you for this nice presentation. The schema, does it only work when you use Gutenberg, or?
Yeah, so these blocks are Gutenberg only.
Yeah.
I realize there's a lot of people who don't really like Gutenberg yet, and also realize that there's a lot of UX work to be done on Gutenberg to make it better.
We just recently got Gutenberg on
Yeah,
us.
we only recently switched ourselves. So the problem is that we can't maintain that for two editors, because the block interface simply doesn't exist in the classic editor. So it's very hard for us to do it there. So yes, this will only work in the block editor and in Gutenberg. And I hope other CMSs will adopt similar systems. We're already seeing a very large action from the Drupal community to use Gutenberg in Drupal as well. There's been a lot of negativity towards Gutenberg in the beginning, and I honestly would urge everyone who's not looked at it for a while to look at it again and try it. I like it, but I can also totally see that it has its problems somewhere.
Will you still support the classic editor for?
Yeah, we'll support the classic editor with all the features we have. We're actually thinking about moving some of the interface changes that we've done for Gutenberg over to the classic editor as well, so having a sidebar for Yoast SEO in the classic editor, because the UX of that is just a lot nicer as you're typing. So yes, we will support the classic editor for at least two more years, and I think a couple more depending on what Core decides to do.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. Yes, up front. Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, great catch.
So anyways, one of the problems I have with using the blocks is that it's constantly saving every single second. And you go in to make a change, and then it's already saved, and you're not sure exactly where you stand. So I think that's the biggest problem why I wanted to go back to the classic editor.
Yeah, I see Hera next to you going, yes, we know that. Hera is one of our architects working on all of this stuff. There's issues, I know. And the part of it is also, there's issues with plugins that collide with Gutenberg in ways that make it very hard for people to figure out that there's issues. So I'm not saying it's perfect yet. I do think it's the future. So we're in this weird limbo state that we have to get through to get to something better.
Is the schema still working, though, in the classic?
Well, so the schema we already put out in Yoast SEO will remain to work, but all those new blocks will only build for Gutenberg.
Another question. Do I still have time? Yes, we have.
two rows in behind you, then you won't have to throw very far.
Oh.
Yes, there you
He's
go.
wearing Yoast color.
Yeah, I realized that when I got here. I didn't try.
It's totally okay.
It's a beautiful color.
So you mentioned needing the blocks to work with the schema. Does that play well with Visual Composer? If you were to use that as a builder?
It's interesting to see where Visual Composer and other builders will go in the next 6 to 12 months, because a lot of these things are changing in the WordPress world as a whole. We work quite closely with Visual Composer. We actually have a Slack channel, so we use Slack for internal communications. We have a Slack channel with external parties that integrate with Yoast SEO. Visual Composer's in there, so we talk to them, but I honestly can't really tell you what their plans are for this right now. All of this is built on the Gutenberg API, so if we change, basically if they tie into the Gutenberg API, all our stuff will work in that, and I hope all the block editors in the world will do that. In a way, the blocks open up the possibility for all these site builders to work on a singular API, have their different interfaces, but work on the same API, and so that plugins like ours can work with all of them. That's the future. That's not really the present yet.
Right. So learn Gutenberg.
Anyone else? Thank you. Yes. All the
That
way
way.
there. You can throw it back at us if you want to. Not at me. I'm a terrible thrower.
Very
oh,
good
wow.
throw.
Great catch.
Hi everyone, good morning. So did I get it correctly? If we are going to be able to publish directly to Google and Bing, does this matter that we don't need the fetch and render feature anymore via Google Search Console?
We'll basically do that for you.
That's cool.
What we do is pretty much, as you hit publish, we do a similar action to that. It ties into similar APIs. And for Google, you'll need a Google Search Console account, probably. For Bing, you won't even need a Bing Webmaster Tools account. We'll just send it straight into Bing.
Do you want to ask a question or are you just stretching? It's okay. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, that's the final one, I guess. Yeah, throw it to, yes. Wow.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What type of schema will be the Yoast be using? Schema.org or?
Yeah, so schema.org in JSON, we'll put it out on the page in JSON LD markup.
Oh.
We're actually working on combining all the schema on the page into one big JSON LD blob. Jono, who's here, has been working a lot on that. It is, for us, it's the preferred way because it means that we can separate the schema from the look of the page. So that if someone, it means that you can't really break things with your theme or in any other way. We can just output it and search engines can just read it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
See you all
applause for-
around.
Yeah.